Hey everyone, Sanjor here. As those of you who have watched my videos for a while know, my goal in making these is to help myself to process lessons and experiences in my own life, and to pass what I'm learning on in a way that hopefully can provide value to somebody else. So, in that spirit, I came across a new personal milestone in my YouTube experience recently. I have recently received my first negative comments on my videos. In a way, I honestly consider it sort of a badge of honor. It's kind of like proof that I'm picking up enough momentum with these videos that somebody actually bothered to disagree with me. However, as I was reading some of these comments and reflecting on what was said, I'm not going to pretend that I wasn't a little bothered. After all, I am a human being, and human beings don't generally like to be disagreed with or called out. It is a natural human characteristic to want to be on good terms with other humans. This tendency is rooted in us as deep as our prehistoric ancestors, because for them, banishment from the tribe was as good as a death sentence, since one lone human was unlikely to survive in the harsh environment they lived in. Knowing this, we could even say that terror of being disapproved of is justified, at least from an evolutionary perspective. However, times are now different. Most of the people watching this video probably don't have to grapple with the same constant threats to their physical survival. Furthermore, the population of our modern-day human tribe has grown significantly, and thanks to technology such as the internet, tribal influence now surpasses geographical boundaries in a way that simply has never been possible. Human tribes, which were once small and isolated, have become massive and interconnected, and now must navigate cultural differences that small prehistoric human communities likely never would have encountered. Given this novelty of exposure to different opinions and our relative ease of expressing our opinions to large groups of people at a time through social media, it's pretty much impossible to avoid a disagreement with somebody at some time. Additionally, people approach conflict differently today. Encounters between two people are usually brief, anonymous, and seemingly low stakes, at least in the short term. In a medieval village, for example, you had to be a little careful how you interacted with people, because you knew you would probably see them almost every day, possibly even for the rest of your life. Settlements were often small, with little migration in or out. You were incentivized to treat people decently because of the impact it would have on your reputation. If you'll forgive the expression, you didn't want to pee in the pool you swam in. Today, however, especially in more developed countries, the greater part of the population lives in cities, where you're far less likely to run into the same person twice. And this is nothing compared to the fleeting and the anonymous nature of our encounters online. In such settings, there is little or no accountability for the way you treat others, and thus far less incentive to be kind. Any way you shake it, conflict is a part of life, and although we may not be able to avoid it, we can learn to deal with it in better ways. So, to that end, I present to you how to be hated and happy. Now, since a lot of my videos so far have dealt with Taoism and learning to accept and make peace with seemingly undesirable outcomes, I imagine a lot of you are assuming that I'm just going to talk about how to surrender to the concept of people not liking you, or how to transcend negative feelings that come along with people not liking you. Now, I would definitely recommend learning to accept any and every circumstance in your life, because it is one of the easiest ways to minimize your own personal suffering. And I do have plenty of other videos on that, but I'm going to dive a little deeper here today, because lately I've been learning that those people that we see as rivals or antagonists in our lives are not merely a thing to put up with, but they are actually one of the biggest potential catalysts for self-healing or self-improvement. I'm talking about the people you just can't seem to get along with no matter how hard you try. The people that seem like they were born just to cause you grief. Maybe you don't have a problem with somebody that extreme, but maybe you know someone that criticizes you or makes fun of you. Maybe it's a child that just has a knack for rubbing you the wrong way. Maybe it's a parent that doesn't listen. Maybe it's a spouse or a partner that's always distant. Maybe it's a roommate who refuses to clean up after themselves. Maybe there's even a group of people, perhaps a religious, ethnic, or a political group, that just seems to have your number. And I'm not just talking about racists here. Do you have a problem with any group of people? Do you distrust dentists, teachers? Do you have an issue with people of the opposite sex, with people in authority? Pretty much everybody harbors some kind of resistance to some group of people, whether you acknowledge it or not. Whatever the case, there is a specific process you can follow that will help you deal with this issue, and the best part is, it doesn't even require any action on their part, because you are going to be focused on healing and improving you. The indigenous people of the Hawaiian Islands had a process for forgiveness which is called ho'oponopono. Ho'o means to make, and pono means right. However, the word pono is repeated to indicate being right with someone else and with yourself. It refers to the part that you play in what somebody else is feeling. It reminds you that since the problem is between the two of you, no matter whose fault it is, We are both connected because of this problem. Of course, the greater universal truth at play here is that all things are connected, and all things are one. And the problems we experience with other people are nothing more than problems within ourselves which we have manifested into the physical world. To say it a different way, something that someone else does only bothers you because of what bothers you about yourself. And you will manifest people and situations that continue to bother you in this way in order to draw your attention to the problem and facilitate healing. To say it a different way, something that somebody else does that bothers you only bothers you because of what bothers you about yourself. And you will manifest people and situations that continue to bother you in this way in order to draw your attention to the thing that bothers you and facilitate healing. Ho'oponopono states that if this were the case, we have some sort of ownership in every single situation or thing in the world which we perceive as bad or problematic. And the reason why we have an ownership in this is because we are part of the collective consciousness that manifested it in the first place. Therefore, it is up to us to take responsibility for our manifesting, and the part that we played in manifesting this thing or bringing it to life, even if we did so unconsciously. Although we were probably not aware of manifesting the problems that occur in the world, we need to take responsibility for the unconscious thoughts and attitudes that contributed to manifesting a particular thing. Now, this is not even mentioning anything that we might have done consciously to create a problem between us or somebody else. Of course, we need to take care of these things as well. Now that we know the general concept of Ho'oponopono, let's talk about how to use it. Honestly, it's pretty simple. At its core, you can think of Ho'oponopono in terms of 4 statements. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. Take a moment to be still and use this mantra as a sort of meditation, repeating it as many times as you feel is necessary, directing it with your intention toward the person with which you have a grievance. It can help to close your eyes. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Imagine yourself saying this to the person that you are at odds with, which can be yourself, by the way, and imagine yourself saying it to higher power as well. Doing this consistently or whenever you feel bad feelings towards someone else is usually enough, but if you're the sort of person that wants more of a deep dive, here are some bonus tips that can help. 1. When somebody speaks against you, identify the truth in what they're saying. This may seem like strange advice because most people aren't used to looking at disagreements in this way. For most of us, we are used to looking at a problem through a very black and white kind of lens. Either you're right and I'm wrong, or I'm right and you're wrong. And to be honest, it's pretty rare for any of us to assume anything but the second option. The reality is that every single opinion in the world has at least some kernel of truth to it. I truly believe that one of the biggest shortcomings of the human race in terms of relationships is the inability to consistently see problems from points of view other than one's own. Our egos are so very good at showing us a world where everyone else is bumbling around like apes and we alone see the bigger picture. For example, a study once found that over 70% of Americans consider themselves to be above average drivers, which of course is impossible. Another study found that around 64% of American drivers rated their driving at excellent or very good, while only 22% gave the same rating to other people of their own age. Long story short, I'm right and everybody else is wrong. People tend to overestimate their opinions and abilities simply because they are theirs. This may be because we spend far more time with our own opinions than anybody else's. We take things for granted that we think of every day. If you neglect to brush your teeth for 7 days and then attend a party, you will be the last person to notice your bad breath, even though your nose is the closest nose in the room to your own mouth. Our faulty logic and characteristics may be obvious to anyone who knows us, while being completely invisible to us. This is one reason I mentioned at the beginning of the video that people that disagree with or criticize us can be some of the best tools for our self-improvement, if we can learn to view them with a healthy and objective perspective, or at least as objectively as possible. So how do we do this? When someone says something contrary to your point of view, or even something that may be hurtful or offensive, allow yourself the time and space you need to be offended or angry or whatever you need to feel. Sit and be unconditionally present with that emotion until you feel that you are no longer resisting it. Once you have done this, then look for the truth in what was said to you. What they said may not be all true, but I promise that if you look, you will find at least one part of it that is true. Make your intention with this exercise to understand the truth in the other person's statement, not to prove whether or not it is true or false. It may surprise you when you learn what the truth is. Once you have learned it, you can use this knowledge to change and improve yourself. Anybody can talk themselves into a circle and convince themselves why the other person was wrong or what they said was out of line or incorrect. This is not difficult to do since the ego largely does it for you. But if your priority is self-betterment and enlightenment over pride and personal comfort, you're going to need to learn to humble yourself a bit and honestly identify what is true about what somebody says to you, even if you don't like it. 2. See the situation from the other perspective. Once you have found the truth in someone's opinion, there may still be things they said or did that were not true, that were hurtful, or that may appear genuinely wrong or bad to you. When you run up against these kinds of things, try to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Think of everything you know and everything you don't know about them. Their perspective, their interests, their fears, where they grew up, what their parents were like, how they were raised, triumphs and tragedies in their lives, the stories they tell with their body language, and anything else you know about them. Picture them in your mind as if you were talking one-on-one with their soul or spirit. Ask them, what do you want to tell me about this situation that I'm not understanding? Or, what do you want me to see about you? Do so with love and a sincere desire to understand this person's perspective, and avoid passing judgment. Now, open your mind to whatever might come in, even if it seems ridiculous or unprovable. The more you understand a person, the more able you are to feel a genuine compassion for them. Then, as you practice Ho'oponopono and you say, I'm sorry, you can say, I'm sorry that blank happened to you, or I'm sorry that blank is where you're at right now. Doing this reminds you that this person did not come to the planet just to bother you. They are a real person with real problems, just like you. 3. Send love to this person and express sincere gratitude for the lesson they came into your life to teach you. It's easy to be grateful for people who are nice to us. It's not difficult to treat people with the same kindness that we receive from them. But if we only do this, we miss out on a valuable relationship. Remember that every situation we encounter in our lives is an opportunity from Source to serve our expansion, and relationships with our so-called opponents, enemies, or rivals are not exempt from this rule. In fact, they embody this rule. An enemy or a rival will do things for you that most friends will never do. They will give you completely uncensored feedback. Your friends have an interest in maintaining their relationship with you, and therefore most friends will perceive it to be in their best interest to avoid giving you honest criticism. Make no mistake, if you want an honest evaluation of yourself, your true friends are your enemies. Most of us are far too self-serving to dish out an honest criticism that will help a friend to improve their life, because it can be uncomfortable to do so. Instead, your friends will usually tell you exactly what they think you want to hear, allowing you, almost begging you, to stay complacent, keep the status quo. But your enemies won't play that game. Your enemies will blast through your delusions. They'll expose your weaknesses. They'll parade your excuses right before your eyes in stark and unapologetic clarity. They will show you what you really are, and they won't let you stay there. For any of you who may be familiar with the New Testament, there is a popular section where Jesus says, Ye have heard that it hath been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. This is a very well-known passage from the Bible, but why should we love our enemies? Well, one reason is because the competition that we have with them makes us better. Anyone who has ever competed with a sibling has experienced this to some degree, the growing and stretching that comes from the direct competition with somebody. This only feels bad because of the way that we frame the situation. Competition can feel like a negative experience if we perceive this individual as an enemy to be resisted, rather than a teacher to learn from. This doesn't mean you have to become best buddies with such an individual, or even like them as a person, but it does serve you to respect them. A visual model I use to get myself into the spirit of this is to picture myself as if I were a boxer, staring at the person in the other corner of the ring. This other boxer isn't there to make my life miserable. They aren't there because of some personal vendetta against me. They're simply there trying to win a boxing match, same as me. We both have our own life and our own goals that have necessarily pitted us against each other, and this match is an opportunity for me to learn something about boxing, if I'm ready to be taught. The competition isn't a zero-sum game at all, with one winner and one loser, where only one person gets what he wants and the other person goes home disappointed. We're like two bulls pushing against each other. No matter what happens, we both go home with stronger legs and thicker necks. No matter what the result of the competition is, we both win. This is the beauty of the rival relationship. So next time you find yourself in the ring with an enemy, try showing gratitude for what that person came into your life to teach you. Ho'oponopono, or forgiveness, is not a trick or a hack. It's a way of life. If it's practiced often enough, with sincerity, it starts becoming automatic. It may start as a simple practice, but with time and persistence, it becomes a habit, and then it becomes part of you. The truth is, we can't prevent ourselves from ever coming into conflict with somebody, but we can reduce the suffering these experiences cause us by taking responsibility for our own actions and attitude and improving ourselves in the process.